It's important to note that a handshake is not a legal structure, friendship is not a contract, and being brothers or sisters does not guarantee trust. Without clear expectations, you'll always argue about time commitments, money withdrawals, how do we deal with new investors, and so on. Hello and welcome again to another episode of the Prosperity Thrive Drive. My name is Charity Mwangi, your host and a financial consultant. Today we are going to talk about founders' agreement, and I will be explaining what that entails. So this is an episode for entrepreneurs who want to build a business with partners. So that means friends, families, other entrepreneurs, or investors. I've seen several cases where people depend on verbal agreements, no documentation. This is a very risky place to go when it comes to business. I know you also have cases where you've seen businesses start with excitement with these 2 or 3 partners, but then as time goes by, this business closed down. And it's not because the business was not making sales or growing. It's because this partnership came to a point where it broke down because there was no agreement of the duties and structures of that business. So in this episode, as we talk about the founders agreement, we'll look at what it is, what it entails, and why it is important. A true scenario that happened: 2 friends started an online fashion business. Things were great at first. The business was booming. They were selling. They were good in marketing, social media marketing. They were good in customer service. But something happened down the line. One day, one partner started withdrawing money to pay themselves because they felt like they were doing more than the other partner in that business. And then the other one wanted to reinvest the profits so that the business can grow. But this other one wanted to be paid the profits. Again, there was no agreement. They had no clarity on roles, decision-making structures, payment approval structures, customer relations processes, and the duties of each of them were not clearly laid down. Eventually, sadly, they stopped talking, the business collapsed, and they lost their clients, and the friendship was destroyed. And this happens more often than we think, even with family members. It's important to note that a handshake is not a legal structure, friendship is not a contract, and being brothers or sisters does not guarantee trust. So if you're going into business with someone, you need a founders agreement. So what is a founders agreement? A founders agreement is a legal and a formal written document that outlines how a business will run between 2 or more people starting the business. So a founders agreement brings clarity on who owns what, how much capital each person is bringing, who makes the decisions, how do we handle profits, do we reinvest or pay out, who approves payments, who does the marketing, who brings in business, and what happens if one partner wants to exit. So it's not about distrust, it's about a structure. So why do most founders keep the founders agreements? Number 1, people say they trust each other. We've come from the same family, or we are colleagues, or we are best of friends, so we do not need a founders agreement. The other thing that people say is that it's just a small business, we don't need too much documentation. And some people say we'll deal with it later. And sometimes later is too late. But business is not static. People change, circumstances change, interests change, relocation happens, and so on. Without clear expectations, you'll always argue about time commitments, money withdrawals, who owns what, who makes the final decisions, how do we deal with profits, how do we deal with new investors, and so on. And these fights are avoidable if you have an agreement in place. So you may ask me, what do I include in a founders agreement? Number 1 is details to do with equity and capital distribution. You need to know who owns what percentage of the business, What should each person contribute as capital in form of cash? What should each person contribute in terms of skills and time? And you also need to know, is there room for change of that in the future, in case you have more investors who want to join your business. Even if you have a 50-50 partnership, you need this agreement and these details to be documented. Number 2 of what you should include is the roles and responsibilities. You might have one partner who is very good with marketing, and another partner is very good with customer service or finance issues. So it's very important to have all these roles well documented. So include who is responsible for what: sales, finance, admin, operations, customer service, payments, and all that. And also include what happens if someone does not deliver on their duties. So this will avoid overlap in duties and assumptions. Number 3 thing that should be included is the decision-making process. So how are decisions made? Is it on majority votes? Is it unanimous? Or is it a CEO's decision if you have a CEO? And then also, what happens if you disagree? So ensure that you're not stuck if there is a tie in voting or conflict. Number 4 thing that you need to include is the profit sharing. So you need to indicate, when do you start drawing salaries, being paid dividends? How are the profits shared? So is it equally or based on the capital contributed by each partner? Most partnerships break because one person may feel that they are doing so much and the other one is only taking in the profits. Number 5, you need to include the exit clause. So what happens if a partner wants to leave? Do they sell their shares or are they paid out? Can they start a competing business? So build what I would call a divorce plan, because it will save your peace later. Number 6 thing to include is the capital contribution and future funding. So how much did each person put in the start? What if more money is needed? Do we take a loan as a business or do we bring in money as partners? When are we supposed to consider a loan or an investor? Number 7 is intellectual property. Ensure you know and you've documented who owns the logo, the name of the business, the contents, and the systems created. If a partner leaves, can they still use the name and the logo? Let me give you a scenario where there were these two partners that wanted to get into an interior decor business. So partner A had this name, let's say Sparkles Interiors, but they had not registered that name. So this other partner came in and they officially and formally registered that name. So they did business was booming and they continued, but they didn't have a founder's agreement. So one time they got into disagreements and they decided that this business cannot continue with this type of relationship. So what happened, this partner that came in claimed that they own that name and they want to continue doing business with that name. But remember, this name was for partner A, but now they had not registered that name, so they could not claim that name. So there was a lot of disagreements and conflict because they did not put in place a founder's agreement detailing who owns the name, who owns the logo, who owns the systems, and all that. So it's very important to have these details on the founder's agreement. The other thing that must be included is confidentiality and conflict of interest. So you need to know, can a partner open a similar business while still in the partnership? For example, for this case of interior. So if these two partners are running an interior decor business, so can one partner start selling interior decor items? And then also you need to know what information is protected so that you don't get into trouble because of exposing certain information. The other thing that needs to be included is the review timeline. Agree to revisit the agreements every 6 months, especially at the beginning of the business, because when you're starting a business, you normally don't have all the details concerning this business. So keep on reviewing these agreements annually, because also as the business grows, different dynamics come into place. Before you start off this business and before you even think of drafting these founders' agreements, you need to sit down with a partner or partners that you want to start this business with and discuss several things. Openly talk about your expectations. Put everything in writing. Everything should be signed by all parties. If needed, ensure you get a professional in this area that will guide you in this process. And also ensure that this document, after you've all signed, it's stored securely, both physically and digitally. I've also encountered another scenario where two partners were coming together to register a business. Let me call them partner A and partner B. So partner A didn't know the whole process of registering a company, but partner B knew at least some details towards that. So partner A told the other partner, go ahead and register this business. They had agreed on the name and bring the documents after you're done. So what happened, partner B went ahead and registered this business, but put all the shareholding in his name. Remember, partner A also had contributed capital towards this business, so they need also to be a shareholder. But partner A didn't have that information. They didn't know what it entails to register a company. So by the time they knew what was happening, it was too late because this company had already been registered and all the shareholding was with partner B. So that's why it's very important, even if you do not understand the process, consult a professional and let them look at those documents. So if you have already started a business with a partner and you don't have a founder's agreement, this is a sign that you should have one in place. Don't wait until things have gone south. And if you're thinking of starting a business with a partner, your friend, your sibling, whoever it is, sit down, write down all your expectations, talk, agree, and document. So thank you for joining me on this episode. If you'd like more information, if you're starting a business with a partner, feel free to contact me and you can join our Business Acceleration Program. And part of our Business Acceleration Program, we talk about founders agreement and the documents you need to have in place before you start a business. Thank you once again for joining me on this episode. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe if you haven't done so. And see you in our next episode of the Prosperity Thrive Drive.